Wait, you're telling me the sweetest, funniest grandmas on TV were hiding this much chaos behind the scenes? From a mother younger than her daughter, to secret cue cards scribbled on props, to royalty watching the show in a way you definitely wouldn't expect. The Golden Girls wasn't just a cozy sitcom, it was a full-blown backstage circus. And when you think you've heard it all, there's contract demands about walking barefoot, missing kitchens that make zero sense, and even struggling actors taking roles to keep their health insurance. Oh, and let's not forget the bizarre joke that accidentally created the entire show in the first place. Yeah, this gets weird fast, so grab a slice of cheesecake, get comfortable, and maybe don't trust everything you remember about this wholesome classic. Here are 25 weird facts about the Golden Girls, 1985. You didn't know. 25. One of the most influential sitcoms ever. When people talk about classic television, the Golden Girls almost always finds its way into the conversation, and honestly, it earned that spot the hard way. This wasn't just another sitcom with a few laughs and forgettable moments. It quietly changed what TV could talk about, who it could focus on, and how audiences connected with characters who were rarely seen as leads back in the day. 4 older women living together, sharing life, love, loss, and plenty of sarcasm. It sounded simple, but it was actually groundbreaking. What really made the show stand out was how naturally it blended humor with serious topics. While other shows played it safe, this one leaned into real-life issues like aging, loneliness, friendship, and identity, all without losing its charm. The writing was sharp, the timing was perfect, and the chemistry between the cast made everything feel real. Viewers didn't just watch the show, they felt like they were sitting at that kitchen table, listening in. Over time, its influence spread far beyond its original run. Many modern sitcoms borrow their style, their boldness, and even their character dynamics. Decades later, it still feels fresh, still gets laughs, and still connects with new audiences discovering it for the first time. Before we move on, hit that subscribe button and stick around for more hidden TV secrets. 24. All 4 leads won. Emmys. One thing that truly sets the Golden Girls apart is something very few shows in television history have ever achieved. All 4 leading actresses, Bea Arthur, Betty White, Rue McClanahan, and Estelle Getty, won Emmy Awards for their performances. That's not just impressive, it's almost unheard of. Usually, 1 or 2 standout actors dominate award seasons, but here, every single main character got recognized. This says a lot about how balanced and well-written the show really was. Each character had depth, personality, and their own spotlight moments. Dorothy's sarcasm, Rose's innocence, Blanche's confidence, and Sophia's sharp humor all brought something unique to the table. No one felt like a side character, and the awards proved it. What's even more interesting is that these wins didn't happen all at once. And they came over different seasons, showing that the show maintained its quality over time. It wasn't a one-hit wonder, it stayed strong year after year. The Emmys simply confirmed what fans already knew. This cast was something special, and each actress played a huge role in making the show unforgettable. 23. Covered LGBTQ+ topics in the 1980s. Back in the 1980s, most television shows avoided sensitive or controversial topics, especially anything related to LGBTQ+ issues. But the Golden Girls did the exact opposite. It stepped into conversations that many shows were too afraid to even mention, and it did so with honesty, warmth, and respect. The series featured multiple episodes that touched on LGBTQ+ themes, including storylines about gay friends, same-sex relationships, and acceptance. These weren't played as jokes or stereotypes. Instead, the show treated these characters like real people, with real emotions and real struggles. That was a big deal at a time when representation was extremely limited. What made it even more powerful was how the main characters reacted. Sometimes they were confused, sometimes surprised, but they often grew and learned. That kind of character development made the stories feel genuine and relatable. It showed audiences that understanding and acceptance were possible, even if it took time. By addressing these topics so openly, the show helped push television forward. It made space for conversations that would become more common years later, proving that comedy could be both funny and meaningful at the same time. 22. Show tackled HIV/AIDS early. During the height of the HIV/AIDS crisis, fear and misinformation were everywhere. Many TV shows avoided the subject completely, unsure how audiences would react. But the Golden Girls chose to face it head-on, and that decision made a real impact. In one memorable storyline, a character fears she may have been exposed to HIV through a blood transfusion. At the time, this was a deeply sensitive topic, and many people didn't fully understand how the virus spread. The episode handled the situation with care, explaining the facts while also showing the emotional side of fear and uncertainty. What stood out most was how the characters responded. Instead of panic or judgment, there was compassion and support. The show made it clear that people living with HIV deserved understanding, not stigma. That message was incredibly important, especially during a time when many were being unfairly judged or isolated. By bringing this issue into millions of living rooms, the show helped educate viewers in a way that felt natural and human. It didn't feel like a lecture, it felt like a conversation, and that's exactly what made it so powerful and ahead of its time. 21. Dorothy's son was inconsistent. If you pay close attention while watching The Golden Girls, you might notice something a little strange about Dorothy's son, Michael. His character doesn't stay consistent throughout the series, and it's one of those details that sharp-eyed fans quickly pick up on. At times, Michael is portrayed as a struggling musician trying to find his place in the world. He comes across as a bit irresponsible, someone who relies on his mother more than he should. But in other episodes, his personality seems to shift. His behavior, maturity level, and even his life situation don't always match what was previously shown. These changes likely happened because sitcoms in that era didn't always focus heavily on long-term continuity. Writers often adjusted characters to fit the needs of a specific episode or storyline. While that approach allowed for more flexibility, it sometimes created small inconsistencies like this one. Even with these shifts, the relationship between Dorothy and her son still felt real and relatable. Their interactions captured the ups and downs of family life, showing both frustration and love. It's a small flaw in an otherwise well-crafted show, and for many fans, it just adds another layer of charm. 20. Sophia's age was never consistent. If there's one detail that quietly shifts throughout The Golden Girls, it's Sophia's age. On paper, Estelle Getty played the oldest character in the house, Dorothy's sharp-tongued mother. But as the seasons went on, the numbers just didn't quite add up. In some episodes, Sophia's age is mentioned directly, and in others, her backstory suggests something completely different. For example, certain flashbacks and stories about her past, like her time in Sicily or raising Dorothy, don't always match the timeline implied by her supposed age. Sometimes she seems much older than stated, and other times, oddly younger. It's one of those quirks that slips by unless you're really paying attention. The truth is, the writers focused more on humor and storytelling than on strict continuity. Sophia's age became flexible, adjusting to fit whatever joke or storyline worked best in the moment. And honestly, it worked. Her character was so lively, witty, and unpredictable that the exact number didn't really matter. In a way, that inconsistency added to her charm. Sophia wasn't defined by a number. She was defined by her personality, her stories, and those unforgettable one-liners that made her a fan favorite. 19. characters' backstories changed. Often. One of the more subtle oddities in The Golden Girls is how often the characters' backstories shift over time. At first glance, everything feels consistent, but if you watch closely, small details about their pasts don't always line up from one episode to the next. Take their hometowns, past relationships, or even personal histories. Sometimes they're mentioned one way, then slightly changed later on. These weren't huge, obvious contradictions, but they were enough for dedicated fans to notice. It might be a different detail about Blanche's marriage, or a change in Rose's stories about St. Olaf. This happened because sitcoms back then didn't always prioritize long-term continuity the way modern shows do. Writers focused on making each episode entertaining on its own, even if that meant bending earlier details a bit. The goal was simple: keep the story funny and engaging. Despite these inconsistencies, the characters still felt real. Their personalities stayed strong and recognizable, which mattered far more than perfect timelines. In fact, these little changes often helped the writers create better jokes and more memorable moments, which is what the show was really all about. 18. The house layout made no sense. At first glance, the house in The Golden Girls feels warm, cozy, and familiar. But if you ever try to picture the full layout in your head, things start to fall apart pretty quickly. The design of the house simply doesn't make logical sense. Rooms seem to shift positions depending on the scene. Doors appear where they shouldn't, and the flow between spaces doesn't quite add up. The kitchen, living room, and bedrooms don't connect in a way that would work in a real house. It's like the layout changes just enough each time to suit the needs of the scene. This wasn't a mistake, it was intentional. TV sets are built for filming, not realism. Directors and writers often adjust layouts to make scenes easier to shoot or to improve comedic timing. If moving a doorway or changing a room helped the joke land better, they went for it. For most viewers, it goes completely unnoticed. The strong writing and performances keep your attention on the characters, not the architecture. But once you spot it, it becomes one of those fun little quirks you can't unsee. 17. B. Arthur and Betty White. Had tension. While the on-screen chemistry in The Golden Girls felt natural and effortless, things behind the scenes weren't always as smooth. In particular, there was reported tension between B. Arthur and Betty White. Their personalities were very different. Betty White was known for being warm, upbeat, and constantly engaging with the audience and crew. B. Arthur, on the other hand, was more private and serious about her work. She preferred to stay focused and didn't always enjoy the extra energy happening around her. This difference in approach sometimes led to friction. B. Arthur reportedly found Betty White's playful behavior distracting, especially during rehearsals and live tapings. However, it's important to note that this tension never ruined the show. In fact, both actresses remained professional at all times. When the cameras rolled, their performances were flawless, and their interactions felt completely genuine. Whatever differences existed behind the scenes, they never took away from what viewers saw on screen. If anything, it's a testament to their talent that the show turned out as strong and beloved as it did. 16. No ad-libbing allowed on set. You'd think a show as funny and natural as The Golden Girls relied heavily on improvisation, but surprisingly, that wasn't the case at all. In fact, the set had a pretty strict rule: no ad-libbing. Every line you hear was carefully written, rehearsed, and delivered exactly as scripted. This might sound limiting, especially with such talented actors as B. Arthur and Betty White, who were known for their comedic timing. But the writers of the show were incredibly skilled, and their scripts were tight, sharp, and packed with perfectly timed jokes. There wasn't much need to improvise because the material already worked so well. Another reason for this rule was the live audience format. Scenes had to hit precise timing cues for laughter and transitions. Even a small change in dialogue could throw off the rhythm of the entire scene. So sticking to the script helped keep everything running smoothly. In the end, this approach paid off. The humor felt effortless, even though it was carefully controlled behind the scenes. It's a great example of how strong writing and disciplined performances can create something that feels completely natural. 15. Episode was removed. Over blackface confusion. Years after The Golden Girls originally aired, one of its episodes unexpectedly became controversial. In 2020, a streaming platform removed an episode due to concerns about a scene that was misunderstood as blackface. In that scene, the characters are wearing mud masks during a spa moment. Another character walks in, sees them, and reacts with surprise. The joke was based on a misunderstanding, not meant to offend. However, without proper context, the scene was misinterpreted by some viewers. The removal sparked debate among fans. Many argued that the episode was being taken out of context and that the show had always promoted understanding and inclusivity. After further discussion and clarification, the episode was eventually restored. This situation highlights how older shows can sometimes be viewed differently through a modern lens. What once seemed harmless or humorous can be re-examined in new ways years later. Still, the show's overall message of kindness and acceptance remained clear, even through the controversy. 14. The house address was inconsistent. For a show that felt so grounded and real, The Golden Girls had a surprisingly confusing detail: its address. Throughout the series, the house is said to be located in Miami, Florida, but the actual address changes more than once. Different episodes mention different house numbers. And if you try to look up the street, you'll quickly realize it doesn't actually exist in Miami. To make things even more interesting, the exterior shots of the house weren't even filmed in Florida. They were taken from a real home located in Los Angeles. This kind of inconsistency wasn't unusual for TV shows at the time. The focus was always on storytelling, not on maintaining perfect real-world accuracy. As long as the setting felt believable, small details like the address didn't matter much. For fans, though, it became a fun little mystery. Trying to piece together the real location of the house is nearly impossible, and that's part of what makes it so interesting. It's one more quirky detail in a show full of them. 13. Quentin Tarantino's early role. Long before he became a famous filmmaker, Quentin Tarantino had a small and unexpected connection to the Golden Girls. Early in his career, he appeared briefly as an Elvis impersonator, taking on a minor role that many viewers didn't even notice at the time. Back then, Tarantino was just getting started, taking whatever opportunities he could to build his career. The role didn't bring him instant fame, but it did give him experience and a small paycheck. Like many aspiring creatives, he used every chance he got to move forward. What makes this detail even more interesting is what came next. Tarantino later used money from small acting gigs and other work to help support his early filmmaking efforts. Eventually, he went on to create films that would define his career and influence the industry. Looking back, it's fascinating to see how someone who would later become so well known had such a small connection to this iconic sitcom. It's a reminder that even the biggest names often start in the most unexpected places. 12. B. Arthur hated cheesecake scenes. One of the most iconic images from The Golden Girls is the four women sitting around the kitchen table, late at night, sharing cheesecake and deep conversations. Those scenes became a signature part of the show, almost like a comforting ritual for viewers. But surprisingly, B. Arthur wasn't a fan of them at all. While the moments looked warm and effortless on screen, filming them was a different story. Over the course of the series, the cast reportedly went through a huge number of cheesecakes, far more than anyone would actually want to eat. Take after take meant repeated bites, which quickly turned something sweet into something exhausting. On top of that, B. Arthur didn't particularly enjoy the dessert itself, which made things even more challenging. Still, you'd never guess it from her performance. She stayed completely in character, delivering her lines with perfect timing and emotion, making those scenes feel natural and genuine. In the end, what audiences remember as cozy and heartfelt moments were, behind the scenes, a bit of a struggle for at least one cast member. It just goes to show how much effort goes into creating even the simplest scenes. 11. Estelle Getty's stage fright. Despite playing one of the boldest and funniest characters on The Golden Girls, Estelle Getty actually dealt with serious stage fright behind the scenes. It's a surprising contrast, considering how confident and quick-witted Sophia appeared on screen. Performing in front of a live studio audience made things even more challenging. Getty often struggled with remembering her lines, especially during the early seasons. To manage this, she relied on cue cards placed around the set. Sometimes she even used props, like her famous purse, to discreetly hide notes and reminders. There were moments when scenes had to be reshot because of these difficulties, but her dedication never wavered. She worked through the anxiety and continued to deliver performances that felt sharp and effortless to viewers. What makes this even more impressive is that audiences rarely noticed any of it. Her timing, expressions, and delivery remained strong, proving just how talented and determined she was. Behind the laughter, then there was a lot of hard work and quiet resilience. 10. Dorothy's clip-on earrings. Dorothy's strong and stylish look in The Golden Girls was instantly recognizable, and her accessories played a big part in that. But here's something unexpected. B. Arthur never had her ears pierced. That meant every single pair of earrings you see her wearing on the show was a clip-on. At first glance, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but wearing clip-on earrings for long filming sessions wasn't exactly comfortable. They can pinch and cause discomfort over time, especially under bright studio lights and during extended takes. Still, B. Arthur wore them consistently to maintain Dorothy's polished appearance. These earrings became part of the character's signature style, adding to her confident and slightly bold personality. It's one of those small details that help define Dorothy's presence on screen, even if it came with a bit of discomfort behind the scenes. Like many aspects of the show, it's a reminder that what looks effortless often involves a lot of unseen effort. The result, however, was a character who looked completely put together and unforgettable. 9. Cast performed for the Queen Mother. At the height of its popularity, The Golden Girls reached audiences far beyond the United States, even catching the attention of British royalty. The show became a favorite of the Queen Mother, which led to a very special invitation for the cast. In 1988, the main stars were asked to perform as part of a royal variety event in London. It was a huge honor, but also a unique challenge. And the humor that worked so well on American television had to be slightly adjusted for a more formal and traditional audience. The cast rose to the occasion, delivering a performance that kept the spirit of the show while respecting the setting. Some of the edgier jokes were toned down, but the charm and chemistry remained intact. It was a rare moment where a sitcom crossed into a completely different world, proving just how widely loved it had become. From living rooms in Miami to a royal stage in London, the show's reach was truly remarkable. 8. Princess Diana and Freddie Mercury's private game. Here's a fun and unexpected connection. The Golden Girls was reportedly enjoyed in a very unusual way by Princess Diana and Freddie Mercury. Instead of simply watching the show like everyone else, they turned it into their own private comedy game. And the story goes that they would watch episodes together, mute the television, and then make up their own dialogue for the characters. Imagine the scenes: Dorothy, Blanche, Rose, and Sophia speaking completely new, often cheeky or exaggerated lines that had nothing to do with the original script. It transformed the show into something playful and personal, almost like improv comedy at home. What makes this detail so interesting is how it highlights the show's universal appeal. Even global icons found joy in it, but in their own creative way. The characters were so distinct and expressive that you could almost imagine them saying anything, and it would still feel entertaining. It's one of those quirky behind-the-scenes stories that adds a different layer to the show's legacy. Proof that its charm reached places you wouldn't normally expect. To 7. Sophia's purse was a thrift store. Find Sophia's small handbag might seem like just another prop, but on The Golden Girls it became something much more memorable. In fact, Estelle Getty found the purse herself at a thrift store, and it quickly became part of her character's identity. The purse wasn't chosen by a costume designer or pulled from a studio collection. It was a simple, practical item that somehow fit Sophia perfectly. She carried it almost everywhere, and over time it became one of those small details fans instantly recognized. But it wasn't just for style. Because of her stage fright and difficulty remembering lines, Getty sometimes used the purse to hide cue cards or notes. It became both a character accessory and a helpful tool behind the scenes. That mix of practicality and personality made the purse iconic. And it's a great example of how even the smallest details, when used the right way, can become an unforgettable part of a character. 6. George Clooney appeared for health insurance. Before becoming a major Hollywood star, George Clooney was just another struggling actor trying to make ends meet. During that time, he made a guest appearance on The Golden Girls, long before his big break. His role came during the second season, and while it wasn't huge, it served an important purpose for him. Like many actors starting, Clooney needed steady work to qualify for health insurance through industry requirements. Taking smaller TV roles was one of the ways to reach that goal. Looking back, it's interesting to see such a well-known name in a relatively minor part. At the time, he wasn't the star people recognize today, just someone working hard and building a career step by step. Clooney later spoke positively about the experience, showing appreciation for the opportunity. It's a reminder that even the biggest stars often begin with small roles, and every step plays a part in the journey. 5. The kitchen was added. Later. The kitchen in The Golden Girls feels like the heart of the show. It's where the characters gather, talk, laugh, and share those unforgettable late-night cheesecake moments. But surprisingly, the kitchen wasn't even part of the original plan. It was added later during production when creators realized the show needed a more intimate space for emotional and meaningful conversations. The idea worked perfectly from a storytelling perspective in giving the characters a place to connect in a relaxed setting. However, adding it after the initial design created some strange inconsistencies. The layout of the house became even more confusing, and certain features, like the placement of doors or appliances, didn't always make sense. Some details, like the oven setup, didn't fully match what you'd expect in a real home. Still, none of that mattered to viewers. The kitchen quickly became one of the most iconic parts of the show. It proves that sometimes storytelling and atmosphere are far more important than perfect logic when it comes to creating something memorable. 4. B. Arthur had a barefoot contract. One of the more unusual behind-the-scenes details from The Golden Girls involves B. Arthur and her dislike for wearing shoes. It wasn't just a casual preference. It was important enough that it actually became part of her contract. She arranged things so she could rehearse and even move around the set barefoot whenever possible. Now that might sound a bit surprising for a professional production, but for B. Arthur, comfort played a big role in her performance. Long hours on set, combined with constant rehearsals, made shoes feel more like a distraction than anything else. Going barefoot allowed her to stay relaxed and focused, which ultimately helped her deliver those sharp, confident lines Dorothy was known for. There was one catch, though. Because she chose to go without shoes, she agreed that she wouldn't hold the production responsible if she got injured. It was a small trade-off for something that made her work easier. It's a quirky detail, but it also shows how actors sometimes shape their environment in small ways to bring out their best performance, and in this case, it clearly worked. 3. Estelle Getty was younger than B. Arthur. It's one of those facts that feels almost impossible at first. Estelle Getty, who played Sophia, was actually younger than B. Arthur, who played her daughter Dorothy in The Golden Girls. On screen, the age difference seemed completely believable, but in real life, it was the exact opposite. To make this work, the production team relied heavily on makeup, costumes, and performance. Estelle Getty underwent a detailed transformation process that included aging makeup and styling choices to give her the appearance of a much older woman. The result was so convincing that most viewers never questioned it. Interestingly, she almost didn't get the role because she initially looked too young, but once the full transformation was tested, everything clicked. Her posture, voice, and comedic timing completed the illusion, turning Sophia into one of the most memorable characters on the show. It's a great example of how television magic works. With the right combination of talent and technique, reality can be completely reshaped into something audiences fully believe. 2. Betty White and Rue McClanahan swapped roles. When The Golden Girls was first being developed, the casting looked very different from what we eventually saw on screen. Originally, Betty White was set to play Blanche, while Rue McClanahan was going to take on the role of Rose. But both actresses had a concern. They didn't want to be typecast. Betty White had already built a reputation for playing sweet, kind-hearted characters, while Rue McClanahan was known for more bold and confident roles. Taking on similar parts again felt too predictable, so they made a bold request to switch roles. At first, it might have seemed risky, but it turned out to be one of the best decisions for the show. Betty White's portrayal of the innocent and naive Rose became iconic, while Rue McClanahan brought charm and confidence to Blanche in a way that felt completely natural. This change also helped convince B. Arthur to join the project, which completed the perfect cast. Sometimes, taking a creative risk is exactly what makes something unforgettable. 1. The show started as a joke. Believe it or not, The Golden Girls didn't begin as a carefully planned series. It actually started as a joke during an NBC preview event in the mid-1980s. The network put together a comedic skit that parodied popular shows of the time, including a playful idea called Miami Nice, which featured older women living together in Florida. The concept was meant to be light and humorous, not something that would turn into a full television series. But during that event, something unexpected happened. An NBC executive noticed the idea and saw real potential in it. What started as a simple parody suddenly felt like it could be developed into something much bigger. From there, the idea was refined, characters were created, and the foundation for the show began to take shape. It evolved from a quick joke into a fully realized sitcom with heart, humor, and depth. It's kind of amazing to think that one of television's most beloved shows came from such a small and accidental beginning. Sometimes the best ideas really do come from the most unexpected places. And there you have it, 25 weird, surprising, and honestly unforgettable facts about The Golden Girls. From casting twists to behind-the-scenes secrets, this show turned out to be way more interesting than it looks on the surface. Now I've got to ask, which fact caught you completely off guard? If you enjoyed this, don't just sit there. Smash that subscribe button, drop a like, and stick around because there's a lot more hidden TV secrets coming your way.